Welcome to Giants Latest. Today we are talking all things draft because obviously it's approaching very quickly and there's a lot to discuss. So, the Giants are in the midst of their top 30 visits, and there are some guys that I have not seen go to the Giants that I would like to see. So, these are just a couple guys who, after seeing at the Senior Bowl or who watching tape or doing some research on, I have just grown to love and think that they might be a good fit for the Giants. So, the first one is cornerback Quincy Riley from Louisville. I saw him at the Senior Bowl and I just thought he did a really nice job. And I think that with all the question marks in the secondary, especially around Tay Banks and Adebo's foot, Drew Phillips being in his second year, there's definitely some questions. And I just feel like the more the merrier when it comes to cornerbacks. So he's the guy that I love. Another one is Azariah Thomas, who's another cornerback, this one from Florida. Another guy who shined at the Senior Bowl, who had a really nice year for Florida. And some of the comparisons that I have seen are like Sauce Gardner. So, obviously being a Giants fan and have seen what Sauce has done for the Jets, would be thrilled to have another cornerback with that type of capability, athleticism, and ball hawk skills, things like that. Would love that. Let's talk about the offensive line because someone that I really like is Gray Zabel, who I think is probably going to be a mid to end of first round pick. I think if we're lucky, he'll slide to the second round and maybe we could get him at 34. But he has just been a guy who, again, stuck out during the Senior Bowl. He had a really nice performance there. He did really well on one-on-one drills. He was able to handle himself. And he's got, good college experience. So a guy that I would keep watch on. Josh Simmons is another offensive lineman who is probably going to be, I think, maybe like a second to third round pick. So could be an option for the Giants. As we've all talked about, this offensive line needs some depth, needs some more help. And I think there's still some question marks on if they draft a guard or a tackle high on in the draft. Are they really going to be in the rotation or have the option to be a starter? And I think that it could be a possibility. So certain positions, the more the merrier. The offensive line is one of them. So those are some of the guys that I really liked that I would like to see the Giants bring in. There are some other ones in the first round, but I think when it comes to being like realistic about who the Giants actually have a shot at getting, I think the ones that I talked about could be a possibility. The last one that I'm going to throw out here, because I went to South Carolina, I saw him play. The guy was an absolute freak at the combine, is Nick Emenwari. He was a safety. I don't really think that they're going to draft a safety that high. He's projected to go mid first round, but he's a guy that I love. He stuck out a lot. South Carolina had some really nice defensive players. This past year, which as a fan, it was super fun to watch. So I'm excited to see them build upon that and excited to see that him, TJ Sanders, or a couple other Kyle Kennard, South Carolina defensive players that are in the draft. And Kyle Kennard is an edge, and TJ Sanders, I believe, is a defensive lineman or in edge as well. And I think those are both two guys to keep your eyes on that could potentially be in the mix for the Giants, where I feel like Emenwari is probably not going to make it to them. All right, let's move along here to Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 because there was a lot of movement in it. And the one thing that stuck out to me the most is that Cam Ward, who is going to go number 1 overall, is ranked number 8 on his list. 8 out of 50. And I think this is just a good reminder for all of us, the people who are like, oh, Sanders isn't worth a third pick overall and blah, blah, blah. This is what happens with these quarterbacks. It is what it is, okay? He has the number 1 best player in the draft as Abdul Carter, which we're going to talk about in a second. But the fact that he's ranked number 1 overall, let's go through 1 through 8, just so you can see who's ahead of Cam Ward, because I think it's very interesting. Abdul Carter, 2 is Travis Hunter, 3 is Ashton Genty, and you guys know this is going to send me absolutely over the edge if the Giants draft a running back at 3, and I'm not even going to put it out there because I know that they're better than that, okay? They're better than that. Next up is Mason Graham, defensive tackle. Number 5, Jalen Walker, who's the edge from Georgia. Number 6, Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. And number 7, Colston Loveland, who is the Michigan tight end. And then number 8 is Cam Ward. And I just think it's so interesting that all of this movement that happens. And if you're wondering where Shedeur Sanders is, he is all the way at 19. So the people who say like it's not worth picking a quarterback at 3, especially if it's Sanders, I get it. I totally get it. And I'm with you on the value perspective, which is why I think the Giants need to go after Hunter or Carter. They have to go best player available. And there's been a lot of talk in the last week or so that the Browns are really high on Hunter. And again, I don't know what's going on with the Browns. I'll never know what's going on with the Browns. their quarterback situation is just baffling to me. If they don't pick Sanders, what are they doing at quarterback? It doesn't really matter, I guess. To each their own, they'll figure it out, I suppose. So if it's possible that this is all true, that they really love Hunter, then the Giants can get Carter at 3. And I know I've seen some people saying, well, I would definitely not take Carter, the injury issues, and he's probably not going to be a starter day one, where like Hunter's going to be a starter day one and all of that kind of stuff. And I agree with you on that. But when the overall consensus from the NFL expert community is that Carter is the best player in the draft, if he falls to 3, you just cannot not take him. You cannot take Shedeur Sanders over him. And I understand that the Giants need a quarterback and blah, 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 blah. And I think that Shedeur Sanders he will be fine in the NFL. And I think he will be a good quarterback. And I think that he's a good pick. I feel the same way I do as I felt last year about if they pick JJ McCarthy at 6, I'm going to absolutely scream and lose my mind. And I just think they're in the same position this year, except they're not. I know everyone can say that they're backed into a hole and they need to get a quarterback at 3. And I get it. But they have put themselves in a position where they don't have to force it. If they don't love Sanders and they don't think he's worth the 3rd overall pick, they have to go best player available, whether it's Hunter or Carter. You cannot go wrong with either one of those players. And the way I see it is as a Giants fan, we have struggled and begged for depth for year after year after year. And if you can bring in someone like Abdul Carter, number one, it's going to light a fire under Kayvon's butt that he's got to work his ass off, especially if they don't pick up his 5th-year option, which I think they're going to, but hypothetically speaking, let's say they don't. It's also going to give them the option that if Kayvon plays well enough, guess what? Maybe they can trade him and actually get something for him. It also is just going to mean that if Carter is in the rotation and he's a really good pass rusher, imagine what our pass rush looks like between him, Burns, Kayvon, Dex, whoever they bring in as another defensive lineman next to Dex. I mean, you just have to feel like we're building through the trenches. Is that not what we all complain about day in and day out? Yes, the quarterback's extremely important. Doesn't matter that much if your offensive line can't block literally anyone. We have seen it. We have witnessed it with our own 2 eyes for year after year after year. So if they're building through the trenches and they're building up the offensive line, if they're building up the defensive line and bringing in someone like Abdul Carter, how could you not be excited about that? I will be absolutely thrilled. I hope that it works out and the Browns take Carter. Now, I am a little concerned about the injury thing. Don't get me wrong, but everyone gets injured. It's the NFL. And I think you have to, if you're worried about Abdul Carter, I get it. He already has injuries. But I think you also have to worry about Hunter, who's talking about playing both sides of the ball. He's going to be taking on more snaps than other players. And on top of that, it's going to be his first year in the league. There's a lot of transition from rookies to the NFL. They're playing more games. It's a different, everything about it is very different. So I just think that, the injury concerns are valid for both of them. I think that the biggest concern is that we're the Giants and we already have issues with injuries. So I get the concern, but I think that you got to outweigh the talent over the injuries and just figure that if he has to get surgery, let's see how this season goes. He can get it next offseason or towards the end of the year. If the Giants win 3 games again and it's looking like this season is going the way it goes last year, then maybe they cut him off and they say you're getting surgery in week 12, And then he's got a head start on next year. So you never know, but I don't think that it's a bad enough reason not to pick him at 3. All of that to say. You guys let me know how you feel. Now, lastly, I want to move on to this, talking about Chad Reuter's New York Giants 5-round mock draft, because I like a lot of the picks that he made. So I just wanted to run through it real quickly and see what you guys think. So he actually has them picking Shedeur Sanders at 3 overall because the Giants appear determined to field a deep quarterback room after enduring mediocre play at the position for the past few seasons. Wilson and Winston are nice additions who should ensure a strong veteran presence that could help Sanders settle in as the team's future quarterback 1. Now, I don't disagree with that, and I think that makes sense. I just think he's not best player available at 3, and the Giants, that's what they have to do. Like, this team still has a lot of question marks around it. And listen, if we were coming off a year where this team had a winning record, or they even were, 8-9, and the defense looked good and the offense was this close and it looked like they just needed a couple fill-ins, that is a different story. This is not where this team is at. So I think they should go best player available. That's my thought process. At pick number 34, they have interior offensive lineman from Alabama, Tyler Booker. He played primarily left guard at Alabama, but he also has spent some time at left tackle and right guard during his 3 seasons there. He's 6'5", 321. He was a first-team All-SEC by the AP each of the last 2 years, and also selected as a second-team All-American this past season after he didn't allow a single sack across nearly 400 pass blocking snaps. That is what I like to see. Next up at pick number 5, he had Darius Alexander, defensive tackle from Toledo. I've heard a lot of good things about Darius Alexander. He is a name to watch, especially when it comes to the Giants, because I think that he's going to be an option for them, especially in this round, the early 3rd round, and just knowing that they are looking for someone who's going to be able to help Dexter Lawrence. He had back-to-back strong seasons at Toledo, 7.5 sacks and 14 tackles for loss since 2023. He was a 3rd-team All-MAC for his performance in 2023, and then 2nd-team All-MAC honors for 2024. He's only 24, 6'4", 305 pounds. He was one of PFF's top defensive tackles against the run last year, which we all know. If you watched any Giants football the last 2 years, they had a lot of problems on defense. One of the biggest ones was that they could not for the life of them stop the run. Could you imagine? I just want you to think about it for a second. We have Carter and Burns and Dexter and Alexander. And these two can stop the run, and these two can get the sacks. And then you've got ball hawks in the secondary. Oh my God, we could actually have a good defense. We could. It's up to you, Shane Bowen. Don't screw it up. Now, a name that I already talked about, Kyle Kennard, edge from South Carolina. He played in 42 games across 4 seasons at Georgia Tech, and then he transferred to South Carolina and had his best year so far. He's 6'4", 254 pounds. Set career highs with his 11.5 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, and 3 forced fumbles. Also has numerous accolades for his performances. 2nd-team All-American, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, 1st-team All-SEC. You know how I feel about the SEC. You know how Joe Shane also feels about the SEC. It is the best conference, and it is the closest conference to the NFL. Moving along here, pick number 105, Harold Fannin Jr., who's a tight end from Bowling Green. He had a breakout season. 117 passes for 1,555 yards, 10 touchdowns, added another 65 yards and a score on the ground rushing. He led the nation in receptions and receiving yards. He also set several FBS single season records for tight ends, including receiving yards per game, and receptions per game. He's 6'3", so could be a big target, like Daniel Bellinger and like Theo Johnson have been for the Giants. He's 6'3", 241 pounds. He was All-American, MAC MVP, MAC Offensive Player of the Year in 2024. Finished his collegiate career with back-to-back selections as first-time All-MAC. Last up, they have them picking a cornerback in round 5. Pick number 104, Caleb Ransaw from Tulane. He transferred to Tulane for the 2024 season after 3 years at Troy. In his last 2 seasons, he had 85 total tackles, 52 solo, 1 interception, 5 passes defensed, 1 sack, and 10 tackles for loss. And he primarily played in the nickel. So we talked about how Drew Phillips is going to be the starter there. We don't really have a backup there. I mean, I think the backup right now is maybe Cordell Flott, who I think we all don't love in the slot, and who might even be cut this spring. So this could potentially be a good rotational piece. Maybe, I don't really know if he's going to compete with Drew Phillips, but you never know. 22 years old, one of the top performances among corners at the combine. He ran a 4.3 40, 40-inch vertical, and 10.9 broad jump. He earned one of the combine's top athleticism scores at his position. So all good things. I have to say, if this was the Giants 5-round mock draft, I like it. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Hit subscribe. As always, there's more to come. The draft it's on its way.